very warm welcome to the Study School Stay Connected and Learn series. This is our fifth session, and I'm absolutely delighted to discuss this topic today about keeping our children safe. In the past, we've had Dr. Ishi Khosla talking about what to keep on their plates. We've had Shalu Jindal talking about making your children creative. Rajiv and Ruchi Makhani talking about technology, how much is too much. And of course, last time we had Vinita Dwaranangya and Bulbul Sharma talking about to read or not to read. That is the question. Frankly speaking, that is really not the question because it's a given. And today we're discussing keeping our children safe. And we have with us two wonderful guests, Dr. Samir Parikh, who is the Director of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences for Fortis's National Mental Health Program. He is a renowned psychiatrist who right from the beginning has known nothing but excellence. But if you speak to him, he'll talk about excellence being really a path of consistency and not pressuring children. But he himself has done both his MBBS and his MD in psychiatry, and of course come top of the pops from Ahmedabad. And he has reached out to millions of people through all the programs. He has about 80 people working on the team, and they are working from 20 different centers across the country. He's written innumerable books, columns, and as Yogi Suri, our other speaker, just said to me that he heard him on YouTube saying you can never, never, never hit a child. So let's welcome Dr. Samir Parikh.
Pleasure, Shivani.
And we also have with us...
Great meeting you, Doc.
Yeah. We have with us Yogi, who's the joint editor of Milap. The Milap Daily has been there for 97 years, and in April they had their birthday. So during lockdown, what a way to bring in the 97th year. And Milap Publishing, of course, has also been there as part of the Milap Media Group. Yogi, you have been considered a developmental journalist. And in that capacity, you have traveled both with the president, the vice president, and also the Prime Minister of India. So there's a lot of exposure there on a scale of connection that we'd like to know about safety as a larger net. So we'll move right from the absolute core of safety, which is the family, the home, going on to the larger net, which is the nation. I'd also like to share with you that Yogi is the president of the Modern School Alumni Association, and he is the representative, the management representative of the Modern School Association as well. So a lot of connections both with school and media and the country. And of course, he's a parent with a 4-year-old and a 12-year-old. So welcome you.
Yes, that's my most important qualification.
Absolutely. So Doc, I'm going to start with, this whole thing of safe. Right now, of course, the whole focus has been on COVIDian times and keeping our children safe. So that's pretty much done to a large extent in terms of physically how to keep yourself and mentally how to keep yourself. So we'll start with these COVIDian times, but I want this discussion to be a lot more than just that.
I think it's very important to understand what is safety. Safety in today's time, it's keeping children safe from COVID, obviously. That's the physical health component. But then children may be reached out by various forms of media, social media, and that has its own impact, which is how do we keep the minds of children safe as well? Whether it is streaming, whether it is online gaming, whether it is social media, various kinds of content which are freely available, irrespective of the child's age group, the sheer exposure a child has. To me, that component of social, emotional, psychological, personality safety is so much more important, because you can actually tell a child to wash hands, the game out of it, keep children engaged. But how do you also ensure that the media literacy component, that is so important, which ensures that the interface between the world, which is largely completely not in control, highly accessible, and can have a very strong impact on children, so did emotional safety in terms of the home environment, relationship between parents and others at home, the same safety in context of the school. How do you ensure that you won't go through bullying, any form of, aggression? Put all of this in the context, to me, that becomes safety. We just invariably end up seeing safety either physically or illness or abuse. So we need to look at safety well beyond it.
So, Doc, you wrote something which said 21 tips for 21 days of lockdown. We are already on 66. So, what is the impact of this on our kids, and how can we go beyond what the difficulties or limitations that we are facing as parents, as adults in the home? And when I'm talking about kids, it could be our 2, 3, 4-year olds, the kids that come to the study school, but it could even be our teenagers who might be having a lot of difficult times given these circumstances of being locked in.
I'll tell you our own experience of what we've done in the last 2 months. We've done teacher, counselor, parent training, etc. through online engagements in over about 100 plus schools in the country. Right? Every year we do a summer internship for 11th and 12th class students in psychology. We weren't planning to do it this year. We thought they can't come here, they won't get the exposure. Then children only got after our lives that we want to do it. And typically I don't take it because children come to all our centers across the country. I took it. So I took the first batch, which is about 3,500 kids, 5 to 6 for 6 days. I was forced to do a second batch and I end the third batch today. We've covered over 2,000 children. Through those engagements, children said that you've talked about sports psychology, let's do an engagement on that. So we did a 3-day internship on sports psychology. Then they wanted on art-based therapy. Next week we are doing art-based therapy. Next Sunday we are doing fashion and the psychology behind what makes us buy things, and how we can prevent social conformity and yet have our own expressions. And then I'm taking a 7-part series of things like gender sensitization and media literacy also, amongst other things. All of this happened in an engagement with children. Here I'm talking about adolescents. And as a part of the summer internship, I told them to do a social media project. So if you go on our Instagram or our Facebook or on my Twitter, all the posts and feeds that you'll see are all young children. These 14-year-olds who are bringing their creativity, channelizing it, using social media positively to make an impact to end the stigma on mental health. It's up to us how do we channelize. When it comes to younger children, for younger children, it has been an extended vacation, right? It all depends upon how parents and family members have handled this time. If parents are rapid, they feel the pressure, it percolates down and reaches the child. If parents can successfully keep a feeling of normalcy, I have been in favor of online classes. Let me be very clear about it.
You have been in favor of
online classes.
Online classes.
I have been in favor of online classes, not for academics, because I don't think online classes are doing anything as far as academics is concerned. I don't think it even matters, because you can't have a 10, 20 screen per screen and 50 children attending a class and half of them are switched off and doing something else. To me, academics didn't matter when it came to online classes. The reason I'm in favor of it, irrespectively, including primary children, is that it gave them a routine. You don't want children being without a routine, getting up whenever they want, sleeping whenever they want, making a mess of their physical routine. Second aspect was bringing connectivity to them, which is seeing your friends, talking to your friends, seeing your teachers. So the social component of a lockdown where isolation was having an impact, you prevent that. And the third thing was normalcy. The fact that life is still going on, don't worry, it's just one cross section that the entire world is going through in the longitudinal axis of our life. This will also pass. So for me, online classes are important, not for what you teach them, it's only for routine, normalization, and social connectivity. That's the only thing.
I don't know if you saw at the beginning of the program when we had an introduction to the webinars, there was a little square which had our summer camp in it. And from the 3rd of June, this is starting. Before this, we've had our virtual online classes. And exactly what you're saying, when the children come on the class, they do communicate with each other. And that is a wonderful interaction. And the fact that there's a routine, sometimes parents say that, maybe my child won't adjust to this online medium and they're so small. And I always say, give them a week, because it takes even a period of time to set into a routine. And the benefit of that therapy, I call it almost like a therapy, where you're connected, where you have some consistency. Even for the child, they know what to expect. Okay, it's a yoga session followed by a story time followed by an activity. It's very, very calming. Yogi, I'm going to ask you on a lighter note, first as a parent, what have your kids been doing in lockdown?
So the kids have actually had a good time, and they've had online classes, which, well, I would say they've come to terms with, because some bit of, school is also a lot of banter. In this, classes are very focused. So, some part you miss, some part you don't miss, but there's been a lot of baking, there's been a lot of movie making, there's been a lot of, planting seeds and planting rajmas and planting potatoes. So, and there's been enough time for it, like a 3-hour commute saved from the children, 2-hour commute saved for me. So I mean, on a personal note, it's been great.
So coming to our, which is, keeping our children safe. I had initially thought of calling this keeping our children safe, safer than the kid next door. So safer or safest possible. And I think the process of today's journey really should be, as parents, all of us have already got our safety parameters. And this safety could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be, on so many different fronts. So Yogi,
True,
for you,
true.
your children are safe or safest?
So in my, I had been thinking about this, and for me, again, like Dr. Parikh says, that safety, you qualify safety, and you put safety, different categories of safety, like physical safety, mental safety, emotional safety. One is that. I'd go one further, and I'd say, even you'd plan some element of economic safety should something happen to a breadwinner, stuff like that. But that is one part, what I would call logistics. These are survival skills which are process oriented, which we need to learn as parents, and which we need to codify and teach our children also, so that we are talking a common language to survive in today's world. The second part is a softer skill, which I would say is evolution, being able to teach them and recognize unsafe situations. That wisdom between shiksha and vidya, that part, which I say comes from values, and that will help us build stronger children who will be safer anyway. So in that, I'd say, I spend a lot of time talking to them about values and about families, so that they can grow up and be stronger.
Okay, so we have a question from Urvashi Kapoor. Dr. Parikh, this is for you. She wants to know, not interacting with people, will this affect a 15-month-old child, and how will it affect the child's mental health?
It won't.
It won't. Because in fact, for a child, it's your immediate caregivers in any case.
It won't. Don't allow yourself to get into this mindset that a few days here and there or a few weeks here and there of not exposing to a lot of people will actually make a big difference. Let's be honest to ourselves. We've been largely disconnected as a society. Our empathy has taken a big beating over the past couple of decades. We aren't very empathetic. We aren't very altruistic. In the true sense, we've really not been connected. We may be having a lot of friends on our social media posts, but if you lose your password and if you're given images of 10 of 150, a few thousand people who are on your feed, you won't be able to recognize their names. That is the connectedness that we have. I don't think, I think this whole thing about the people have been talking about, oh, I'm missing meeting A, B, or C. I think it's only because a large part has been because we've not planned this. So something happened in the world. So we were all forced to suddenly bring a change. When you get a sudden change, you take time to adjust to it. But in today's time, with the kind of internet availability that we have, you could have done a video call. The fact is, we are doing more video calls today with our extended families and friends. And you've probably talked, all of us, to more family members in the last 2 months than you would have probably talked in the last decade. That's the reflection of how disconnected we were and how connected we could get if we start using our time effectively.
Well, speaking of physical connects, Doc, there's another parent who's asked a question, which is that my daughter, when she goes to school, I sometimes get complaints, and this is pre-COVID, that she has been a little aggressive with the other children. So bullying. So when you talk about these COVIDian times not having any impact, is there some kind of preparedness that we should work towards for all of us and children at large when they get back? It's called like a school readiness or a reintroduction into life as it was before?
Not really. Not really, because we don't know how things will shape up. We don't know what kind of processes, protocols, logistics we'll be having in the next few months. It's as uncertain as it was, and we need to wait to see. I think bullying is an important topic. It's important to have zero tolerance towards bullying. We cannot allow bullying, cyberbullying, or any other form of bullying to be part of young people's lives. We are doing great in about if we allow bullying to be around the lives of children. And be very clear, the child who's bullying and the child who's bullied are both equally vulnerable, both need help, both need to go through, because both of them are not going to have a normal life. If a kid is into bullying, then that aggression, that style will very well get in the personality, affect long-term relationships and success. If a child who's been bullied may well go through a lot of PTSD, self-esteem issues, mood changes, and again not have normal relationships. I think schools need to have zero tolerance toward bullying, but we also need to understand that various forms of bullying that children are exposed to, not just in schools, but in media, in reality television, on social media, in form of trolling, in form of name calling. This all that is having an impact on children. Let's not allow ourselves to believe that the four walls of a home and four walls of a school is good enough to keep children safe. Because to all these windows that are open through mobile phones and laptops and internet and streams, there is way too much happening in children's life that you and I may not really be aware of the kind of exposure that they have.
So nipping it in the bud may be the most practical solution that comes to mind, but in fact may not be so practical after all to implement. How does one nip it?
I don't think so. I think schools need to get their priorities on track. I think we prioritize academics, and which is a good thing. I'm a medical doctor. I'll be the last person to say that academics don't matter, right? But with academics, with the way society is going through a change, with the way media has gone through a change, media literacy, zero tolerance, which is stopping bullying, and gender sensitization. These three components have to be integral to the life skills education of children, starting from primary, continue for the full 13 years. Schools are the only places where you have a child for 13 years. We have so much of time to work with children. And beyond the trigonometries and the calculus and the histories and the geographies, we need to figure out a way to prioritize personality, life skills especially. Because look at what has happened in the recent times. Every time something happens with school-age children, we come out of our hibernation, have an intellectual discussion. We worry about how did this happen, who taught this, parents wrong, teacher wrong, society wrong. There are all sorts of rubbish discussions when something happens. Recently, we had a trigger where all of us discussed. And I was not even a part of these conversations because I was so fed up with the fact that we were actually talking about something that was a fact. And you just accidentally come across one incident and you think, oh my God, what has happened? Not realizing it's happening around the corner every other place, right? And because we don't do anything about it, children tend to suffer because our priorities when it comes to children's education is largely warped.
So Yogi, I'm going to ask you here, what Dr. Samir Parikh is saying is hugely relevant, that here you have a zero tolerance policy towards bullying, and that's the way it should be. You are the president of the Alumni Association, and part of the alumni situation is to get together, reminisce about old days, talk about the incidents, all the bullying that happened. How do you think this is panning out, and really what can the schools do and what can the parents do as a group along with the schools, because you're also part of the parent school interaction at the modern school.
I am a part of the PTA as well, and mm, you know the question I asked really is, which Dr. Parikh is also asking, is that there is an incident that happened, for example. One part is, why did it happen? And most of the dissection happens at that level. Oh, why did that happen? This one said this, name calling, belittling. One part is that. But the part that I keep asking and telling parents is that the larger part of the question is, why does it keep happening again in different parents? Because in that tripod of parenting, there is the school, there is the child, and there is the parent, which is the base. So some part there's a disconnect. Like as a parent, you have to own up. And again, this is a point I'm bringing back to what I said earlier, that without values, because this is a gradual erosion of societal values, which individually we seem to just shirk off, that, oh, that's not my responsibility. That's only somewhere in Amar Chitra Katha, like it went off after that. We are not connecting back to our children with values. We are not telling them that, look, this is wrong, should not be done, discuss it, open up about it. I think that would improve matters.
Well, I'm going to ask a question here, which is, say, Yogi, you are from publishing, okay? You're printing all these stories. Of course, all over there is media in terms of entertainment. There's stories which get their punchline from that extraordinary thing. Oh my God, did that really happen? So watching stuff with your kids, Dr. Parikh, at that time, you're giving them the signal that you too are enjoying seeing this bullying or this extraordinary situation that happened or things went wrong. Personally, I was watching a TV series with my daughter who's 17, and we were both jumping and saying, oh my God, let the baddies not be caught, because the baddies who were robbing the mint were actually the perspective from the show was made. So when you are watching a show with your children, do you have to detach yourself from that connection of what your emotional feel is and say, no, I'm a parent and I have to say, oh, how terrible, the robbers should be caught?
I think any kind of glamorization, any kind of celebration of transgression of values is exceptionally unfortunate. And whether one likes it, does not like it, any form of encouragement that children feel is only going to create a further degeneration of the already filtered value system that the society has. Right? I'm extremely uncomfortable with a lot of lyrics of songs that are used, young children are exposed to. I'm extremely uncomfortable about it. The same thing a child would have said in a school, you would have given him a red card or a pink card and sent the child home. And here you have a not the most intelligent person on Mother Earth speaking absolute rubbish, and you're celebrating with 1 million followers, right? You have, in the name of reality television, you essentially celebrate meanness, rudeness, abusiveness. I mean, if that would have been a child in a school, you would have sent the child to the principal, right?
So how are we going to manage with this time where everyone is consuming content with this intention, and yet the preachy aspect of it, or the webinar keeping your child safe is don't watch this kind of stuff?
No, I don't think that's the issue. Let's be very clear about it. External locus are not in our control. I don't think the media in any, especially the entertainment media, is going through any kind of self-introspective change. I think it will become worse day by day. If you just look at the content that is happening, the content is only degenerating only because you've created a certain level of arousal by showing some kind of stuff. After that, it will become monotonous, so you'll raise the bar. And that's what's always going to happen. That's not in our control. I don't expect self-censorship. I also do not expect, in the name of creative liberalization, people to be responsible. I don't think they typically go hand in hand, which is how life is, and one has to accept it. But that's not in our control. What's in our control is the best we can do as educationists, as parents, as responsible people, is to create more and more filters. More importantly, create filters in the mind of the child, which is a skill.
Yes.
So media literacy is the skill that you give the child, that when the child is exposed to a Superman flying, that child knows that it was shot in a certain manner. There is no Superman that flies, right? So that's media literacy. You see an advertisement which is stereotypical, objectifying, or creating a more stigmatized, discriminatory approach. The child needs to see, why is this ad being shown to me? Who's made this? Who will benefit out of it? We actually do these exercises with children when we do media exercises. Or when a child is exposed to, let's say, news, before they react, they should be trained to look at the other side of the story. Because let's accept it, you look at the same story in two different channels, you will have two different versions. Right? This is the world that we live in. And that's the only way to look at this. There isn't any other way. And at the same time, for parents, when you watch something with your child, look at a teaching opportunity. Not to get preachy, but to see how did you feel about it. So even
Exactly.
who according to you was doing, if at all, and I hope not, the right thing, figure out why the child was saying that. If the child was saying, especially if there is a criminal being shown, that okay, because ABC happened in the criminal's childhood, now the children is taking vengeance, and it's all fine.
It's not. It's not fine.
How would that person whom he hit now, how would that family would have felt? How would that person would have felt if this would happen to somewhere around us? How? So you instill empathy and you instill social responsibility by using the same rubbish that's shown on television to be able to convert it into a teaching moment of media literacy. Because that's not in our control. It will never going to be. It's just going to become worse. Let's be very, very clear about it. We can all say that there is an adult certificate before an online show, but who's fooling each other here? Children are far more intelligent than you and I put together, or more. Our intelligence multiplied will be a fraction of theirs, right? They'll find a way to go through your passwords and your locks and parental locks, and
Oh
they'll,
yeah, easily.
what are we saying? So when you have a mainstream show available by mainstream actors using absolutely crass language, objectification, unacceptable violence, grossness of variety of kinds and perversions. And if you think a 12-year-old and 13-year-old who will be watching it will not be impacted, that's just a bunch of idiots.
Well, I'm glad you brought up this topic, because all of us as parents want to soften our approach and think, chalo, let them watch, it's okay, we are there. But you're almost saying we need to be that corresponding voice that goes along. Yogi, what do you have to say?
No,
Because you are from the media, in terms
no,
of how do you do this media education? Because when your children are watching TV and you're giving them a constant gyan dhara at the same time, you may
yeah.
not be the most popular parent. So
Very true. No, so it is interesting hearing Dr. Parikh here, because I mean, of course, the compliments to the media are well received and fully correct. So I'm not denying you there, but my experiment with this started when my daughter was very small, and I had wanted to read out Amar Chitra Kathas to her. So Amar Chitra Kathas, Indian history, mythology, Indianness in a nutshell. And I thought, this would be a very nice way to start. But from a absolute child's eyes, like when you're reading to a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old. So suddenly I had, that there's this series of kings, there's a series of wars, and all the wars are because the guy wants to marry someone or the other. So from a child's eyes, he's like, so, which war did you have to fight to marry your wife? So I'm like, no, it's not like that anymore. So we got into Amar. So one option was I would just leave Amar Chitra Katha entirely, wait till she's much older. Or I started discussing with her that, okay, he's got on the horse, he's going for this war. Do you think that's okay? Let's discuss. That the second communication starts with a child. Then what happens on screen or on a book or in school is lesser in things, because the child is communicating and telling you what they're really feeling. and you're getting back inside and taking some part of corrective action. That I feel is, how I think what Dr. Parikh was saying, and that is some part what I also believe in. So you're watching a movie, there is negative role models being glorified, which is something I talk about often, the absence of positive role models. Like, why are we not projecting military and defense and making them come to schools and meet children? And why is only, like robbers and charlatans in movies? But that's a separate part. But when we've got people coming on movies, talk to the kid and you'll be shocked. Most of the time the kids say, yeah, I know, this is wrong behavior, the guy's a rascal, but it's good for a laugh. The majority of the children. So, they never cease to amaze us.
Well, what we're doing is really talking about the media, the external, we spoke about school having zero tolerance, and then we spoke about the media projecting stuff and us having to discuss. Dr. Parikh, I'd like to bring us back into the house. And, sometimes there's in fact a question that's come through. I am sometimes losing my cool when I am reacting with the family situation. And how do I undo the damage of having got upset with the children or in front of the children?
You're a human being. Human beings will never be able to be 100 on 100 in their reactions. You will slip. That is as human as it gets. I don't think the issue here is in your slipping. I think the issue is, what do you do after that? If you honestly go to your child, express your remorse, express that you could have done the same thing in a different way, how it could have been in a different way, and this was not the right way for you to do that. That's value education, and that's behavioral training as well, which means you accepted what behavior of yours was not right. You explain what was the trigger, and then you also explain, instead of this, what you should have done. And now you take ownership of that behavior by apologizing or showing your remorse, where you are recognizing the impact on somebody else, which is empathy. So at one go, you've done all of that put together, and then obviously work on yourself and make these instances as few as possible, because you can't be asking for remorse 3 times a day. So also, that also is the case. And
so Shilpa Pathak Khanna is asking, with the current situation, when children are cooped inside the house, how do we manage behavioral issues in them, which didn't exist before? For example, mood swings and irritability, which is a new factor. This is when we, as a family, have limited TV time for the children. So that's one of the things they've done. What else can they do?
see, mood swings, frankly, adults are having many more mood swings than children are having. I have interacted with several thousand children in the last 2 months, and equal number of adults, and the frequency is that adults have a lot more issues than children. So I don't think that's completely there. I mean, it will obviously differ from individual to individual. What is the key thing children are missing? Try and understand that. They are missing physical engagement. They are missing social engagement. Social is their peer relationship, physical is physical. How do you change physical? You make your bedroom into a playground. So if the bed is used to play ball, so be it. If a few glasses are going, so be it. But that physical energy has to be channelized, because this is an unprecedented situation we find in. I'd rather have a child jumping on the bed and the sofa than wanting to go out in the park and play and be exposed to an illness that we do not want children to be exposed.
That's a very valid point. Yes.
And to use various kinds of stimuli, but the most important is social connectivity. Irrespective of your child's age, get them to do at least some video calls with their friends, right? You can have a video party also with their 4 or 5 friends. Why? Because social connectedness is, especially if the child is older, which means older as they get, which is adolescence over, their peer engagement will become key. For younger children, you can use some stimulation, some art, some creativity, family games, family times. And don't say no to TV, but it'll be good to have the whole family sitting together and watching TV, enjoying a good old antakshris. See, you stimulate. So stimulate recreation, stimulate physical engagement, stimulate social, stimulate cognitive stimulation, creative stimulation. You mix and match that, children will be by and large fine. But remember, give more space. Space in terms of even, let the boundary be a bit wider during these cases. So if they're taking 3 steps was upsetting you, now let them take 6 steps.
Well,
And then just do that.
I like the way you said that, because when we have our balloon of the study school virtual summer camp, in that we have exactly like you were saying, let them do this. We have the yoga and the dance and the music and the, the STEM development and the different things. But definitely that physical thing where you said make the bed into a place to fool around and jump around for the kids. Well, we do yoga every day in the camp, and also in our virtual classes, we've been doing that. And I think that some people don't like yoga, then you can gym. But even if it is in an indoor situation, it's a very good idea to really do that physical exercise for the physical uh, ability to feel normal. We have another question here from, oh my God, there's so many questions that I'm getting inundated. Gunvar Sush, okay, how to introduce the spirit of self-study to take care of your own things. So I think parents are really using this platform instead of thinking of how to keep their children safe, really to see how to get the tick marks and have the children fulfill all the parental requirements. How much do you think that is true, Doc?
I have never been in a hurry on these things. I think eventually everybody learns. My mother still feels that I am a mess when it comes to my wardrobe. Every week or so I go back home and my wardrobe is absolutely fine. And सब फिर तुमने कर दिया मुझे फिर मेरे कपड़े and no, my father's to be very, very clear that my towel is still brought in by him. He still continues to do that, and I'll continue to be a child there. I think children learn some of these things. We don't need to push it there. I'm not a very firm believer of pushing some of these things, which will come with time in any case. I'm much more in favor of basic values, empathy, altruism, and relationships, especially with the extended family. I think that is the pillar on which successful careers will be built.
Yogi, how strict are you about your children's academics? Are you also of the belief, as Doc says, that let things be and the water will find its level?
Yeah, totally. That is totally me. Rather because, I have always felt that if you give a child just the thought that he has to work hard to succeed, and as long as the child gets in the habit of working hard, what he's working hard at really doesn't matter, because if it is sports today, when it'll come to real life, he'll have that aptitude of problem solving, working hard, getting to it. It is just that what I tell my kids is that just don't waste your time watching TV, because I don't want you to be 21 and figure out that my childhood just spent staring at a screen, like a virtual childhood. I mean, it's ironic that I say this today when everything is on screen, but the general idea is that experience life. No experience is wasted, and I mean, academics will find its way undoubtedly.
Well, I think from personally, as a parent and director of the study school, I would say the same thing, that the children will find their level. And we as parents, when we get anxious, and schools, when they send the child is lagging behind, especially in these virtual times, it's actually putting pressure on each other, which amounts to pressure on the child, which is highly unnecessary, because the child will find a level of interest and will then work on it. You just have to be the one giving little direction. So sit with them sometimes. If they're doing art, see what art it is. If they're reading a book, see what book it is. And if they're doing a project, discuss the project. They will come back to it. And if you are saying कि घर के काम में कैसे सहायता दें, खुद घर के काम करो उनके सामने, ask them to give you a helping hand. Pallavi Sinha is saying, sir, please suggest few constructive ways for teenagers to spend their time during this difficult situation apart from studies.
Talk to their friends as much as they can. I think the most important aspect of adolescent, teenager age group is their relationship with peers. And when that relationship gets in any which way affected, that's the maximum impact that teenagers go through. And keep encouraging them to talk to their friends. I've been encouraging children to do a lot of video meetings and parties and things like that, and be a part of it. Also, use this time to encourage them if they already don't have some kind of a hobby, creative interest. Because as you grow up, and I was telling this to students yesterday, I'll quickly tell you this. When people ask me to look back at my career, so I passed out from St. Xavier's Delhi in '89, right? Um, there are two impacts of my life, and especially for parents, I want to tell. When people look at my career and they say, "What was the difference?" Two people. My Hindi teacher in grade 7, because from grade 7 he made me, late Mr. Bhaskar, he made me take so many lectures, so many poetry competitions and extempores and debates, and God knows how much that I could wake up in my sleep and speak. And that had a positive impact on my career, what, 25 years down the lane when I became a psychiatrist, because public speaking was the one that differentiated me from a lot of others. And the second one was my bio teacher. And I'm saying my bio teacher not because Mr. Mirinda made me study bio, which he obviously did, and I'm a medical uh, practitioner, bio was my key subject, was because throughout my 12th, there were only two things he would ask me. I hope you still play your guitar. I hope you are still playing your cricket. He never asked me about bio because he knew I was studying. He just made sure that I do not stop taking my breaks, do not stop not valuing these aspects of our life, which is creative and sports. And that's what gave success, because today when you are working so many hours, one song you listen to, one book you read, a poetry that you go through, and you are back relaxed, and that's what sustains a long-term career. So that's what you inculcate in children.
So, Doc, here's Shubham Sinha talking about web series without censorship. All students are not only watching but getting negative ideas. Social media is not more responsible for child bullying, is it? So, we've already answered that question. Here's Rakesh Chandar Sharma saying, my question is, in some villages, the internet network is not available. How can we help the students do their online study without internet connectivity?
Tough one. It's an actual tough one. And that's why when I talked about online studies, I was very honest about it. For me, academics don't matter. My goal is how can I bring routine, normalcy, peer engagement to children. So with whatever we have, infrastructural logistics support, we should just try and bring these three components. Academics happens, doesn't happen during COVID. There's a whole lifespan for academics.
So Gurpreet Kaur Maan, Yogi, I'm going to ask you to take this question. Children while staying at home get more irritated and anguished. Please suggest something. So would you like to suggest some solutions?
So, actually, I would say that the lockdown is more like a test of creativity. You are in a confined space in most part. You are sharing that same space, and how do you ensure that everybody's energies are utilized so that in the evening everybody is sitting together happy? So now you have children doing obstacle courses also within a bedroom. There's art, there's painting, there's recitation. And I'm saying the internet doesn't have to be your enemy. It can also be your friend. Create short videos, have fun with your child. One of the things that I often practice with my children is that whatever things as a parent you feel that it is necessary to give a command that this should be a code of conduct. 99.9% children ignore all such commands, and they will follow your personal code of conduct. If you're going to be lying in bed till 11 in the morning and you tell them wake up at 5, never going to happen. Wake up at 5. Even if you tell them sleep till 11, they'll wake up at 5. So when I say, it's an exercise in creativity, if you want children to be creatively utilized, to utilize their intelligence, get a little involved with them and they'll carry it from there. And a big hit this entire lockdown is baking with children. Just pick up anything off YouTube, make it in a mug. You'd be amazed how much the kids bond with it. I mean, anything in a mug, dhokla in a mug, pizza in a mug, cookie in a mug, muffin in a mug, anything. And kids love it. So if you're looking at immediate
And Rakesh Chandra Sharma ji, I just wanted to say to you कि जैसे Dr. Samir ने बोला that even if there's no internet connectivity, if you have some knowledge to share with your child, जो भी आपकी knowledge base है, you share that with your child. That knowledge becomes a passing on of heritage from one generation to the next. अपने परिवार के साथ अगर हम बैठ के यही बातें करें कि हमारे पूर्वज कौन थे, उन्होंने क्या किया, what did your great grandfather achieve, what did your great grandmother achieve, ऐसी बातें करके the children become very proud of their heritage and that gives them an immense self confidence and belief in themselves. Okay, so here there is Preeti Trikha is asking, this is a very serious question. If one of the parents suffers from coronavirus, how do the teachers deal with the child? And also, Dr. Parikh, I'd like to ask you, if there is coronavirus in the family, then how does one handle that with minimum panic and maximum efficiency?
Yeah.
You talk to the doctor, you follow the doctor's advice to the T. You don't dilute their advice. If you are told to maintain quarantine, you do that. If you're told to stay isolated in a room for 14 days, or whatever the number the doctor says, with or without meds, you do that. If you're said do not do any exposure, then you don't do any exposure. The problem happens, I think there are two things. One is, not everybody ends up doing 100%, and we all allow some personal discretion here and there, which is what hurts us collectively. The second component, because you mentioned teacher, as a society, we need to understand we are already fighting against all odds here. We don't have a vaccine. Worldwide, the issues of beds and ICUs and ventilators. It's not an Indian problem, it's a worldwide problem. Anywhere you go, it's the same story. The last thing we want to add to this is stigma. It's an infection. I can get it tomorrow, you can get it, let's accept it. So we keep ourselves safe by listening to the doctors and the health ministry advice. Simple as that. And if something happens in a transparent, honest way, we immediately reach help so that we can prevent our immediate network, which is our immediate family. There is no other substitute of this. But we do not allow stigma to trickle into a physical illness also. The generations have suffered because of stigma to health and mental health. Generations. Even today, worldwide, stigma continues to be the top reason why people do not seek help from mental health practitioners, because they feel they'll be judged. Even today, corporate India does not look at mental health outcomes as one of the parameters beyond the EBITDAs and PNLs. Even today, preventive health checkups are without any mental health component, whereas WHO has defined that health is physical, mental, psychological, emotional, and spiritual. So you're testing 1/5 of health and you're calling it preventive health checkups. Yeah. So given mental health has always gone through stigma, we are making a huge self-goal here as a society by stigmatizing a physical illness as well.
Well, I definitely think that if you are really, really sick, there's got to be something bothering you in your mind, which manifests itself in a physical illness. Though in these COVIDian times, we can't just go with that philosophy. So my theory is going to be questioned. But Doc, that's really useful to say, follow the advice of the medical practitioners to the T. So Sandhya Bathla is saying, how do you control adolescents when they play aggressive online games, especially when they're hyperactive?
Online addiction games are a concern. See, in early 50s, there was robust evidence that came out that exposure to any form of aggression or violence does cause young minds to become more aggressive because they get desensitized to it, disinhibited to it. They go through an arousal which makes them imitate it, and they actually feel this is just one of the things which is fine. So the values around it also go. I have concerns around online games which have a lot of violence. I continue to have concern around violence shown on entertainment media, but I don't think we can stop it. And I don't think we can stop children from experimenting also, because I don't think that's possible. If you restrict a child too much, then the child feels all the more reason to try and see. I'd much rather use these also as teaching moments. I'd let the child go through this, because I'm not going to deny a child an experience that all the peers are having and give the child a feeling of, you know, I'm the only one out there who doesn't get an opportunity. But I also talk to the child. I help the brain develop a filter where he or she can understand that it's one thing that you are seeing on a on a game. It's another thing when you do it in real, and understand the difference of this by instilling empathy and responsibility.
So Vipin Jitsu is asking just that, are mobile video games advisable in these testing times for children? So you answered that saying that if they are doing it, don't forbid them, create another filter so that they can think of it from a different perspective. So Kamna Berry is saying, Yogi sir, how difficult will it be to bring back students from on-screen to off-screen learning in the post-lockdown period?
Oh, so I really don't see a challenge there. Like if you ask me, most children would be happy to get back to their friends, to meet each other, get that feeling of camaraderie going in school, because like one of those US college children said that we are not really paying money to see a professor on screen. There's a lot more about the college experience. So the same is with schools, that there is a lot more going on than just or rather, as I often joke, that we don't let school get in the way of education. So because there's a lot of interpersonal skills there, there's a lot of bonding, there's a lot of friendship, there's a lot of learning of each other, there's a lot of feeding of each other that happens, which really would be like a cinch really for children to switch from on screen to off screen.
Well, actually, even in our summer camp for the study virtual summer camp, we have got school preparedness as part of our thought process in creating the curriculum. So it is something that happens very organically and without thinking, but there are able to see things from a different perspective. So in that, whether it's the virtual summer camp or it's a virtual class or it's your discussion at home or it's a discussion with the family together, it's very important to have those emotions brought to the fore. So Vipin is also saying, dear panelists, how challenging would it be for print media to gain attention of children post-lockdown? Yogi.
Wow. So print media, the way I see it, is for a slightly elder generation, which has gotten used to reading and discerning. So it is a time for everything really to evolve, including print media. And of course, what I fear is that if there is no introduction to reading the written word anymore, because there is a great trend to shift to video. So if that continues, the power of comprehension, I feel, may go down. Attention spans are already down. So whether we think that, the amount of information you can gather by reading is way more currently, and it should stay. So whether we make a sustained effort as parents to introduce children to reading, to bring them back to reading, and as print media also to realize this and take active steps to get people back to reading.
So Dr. Parikh, I'd like your thoughts on that. Do we need to keep reading as more visual also, or is there some way that that attention span can be expanded? And with this, I'll take another question of Anju Kalra. When siblings are compared to each other, then, compare themselves to each other, then how do you handle that? We have very little time, so that's why pardon me for combining two different aspects together.
I'll answer the second one first. If parents will not compare siblings comparison with each other will automatically become into a camaraderie. Parents should not allow any form of comparison or any form of judge behavior between two siblings. I think that's probably highly advisable. Same applies to teachers. I think reading is important. I think we should encourage children to read. Reading allows opening of a lot of minds. I encourage children to read a lot and give them different genres, different ideas, so that their brain opens up a little bit more. Because what social media, the quick fix, quick snack style of modern day media is preventing lateral thinking, because they bombard you with just one message so many times that you think that's the only thing. I've been telling this to children also, picking up from the entire selfie generation, that we used to call about something called an ideal self, a real self. Nowadays seen is a portrait self, which is what you show on social media. By keep showing your portrait self, portrait self, portrait self, after a while you forget what your real self was, and you start becoming your portrait self, and you lose your
Right.
sense of self. So beyond the likes, the views, followerships, and selfies, be your original self. There is a uniqueness in each individual. That's all that matters.
Those are beautiful words, and here that there are just questions pouring in, and I don't know how to conclude the session. I think we'll extend it a little bit because we're not running away. Sandhya is saying, how do you control adolescents when they play? Oh, sorry, this is already done. Okay, how difficult will it? Poonam Sandhu asks, teenagers are not interested in news unless they see a meme on it. How do you arouse their curiosity?
I'm quite okay if they're not watching it, actually. Uh,
I'm sure Yogi is not.
not,
No,
not,
Yogi
I'm not.
being
I'm not.
97 years of news. And by the way, he's been authoring books on how to keep the newsprint media alive and vibrant.
yes,
So,
but I don't think a lot of news on channels news anymore.
No, so
But
there's
I like the idea of memes. I don't mind children being exposed to news in a way that they understand it, as long as
correct.
it does not transgress values.
So I'm going to answer this in Dr. Parikh's words that news is good provided you put filters on it and educate children about those filters.
Yes.
Turn of phrase. But it is important to know the news because otherwise there's going to be cocooning and frogs in well happening.
Absolutely.
That's very
Absolutely.
important.
Being updated is very important. You don't decide how is the only way a child needs to be updated. That's what we need to see. Different people prefer different style of engagement when it comes to news media. You need to figure out what works best for your child. But not being aware of news, not good at all. But only being exposed to a certain style of narrative in news creates
Correct.
a lot more opinionated thought processes, which unfortunately has become the way of modern day times.
Rekha Bora, how to make children mentally strong so that they don't feel low and panic in the present scenario?
You don't panic, children won't panic. They're quite enjoying it. Trust me, they're enjoying it. And they are learning new things. They are willing to expose to new things. When I did my social media project, we've crossed 50 lakh or some 60 lakh lives touched by posts made by a few thousand kids. They send us about 700-800 posts a day, and if we don't post it within half an hour, then they send a message, why have you not posted mine? And then I've started telling these children on summer internship, please give us 72 hours. You're way too young and way too vibrant and fast. They're all old people who take a lot of. So that's okay. Children are quite fine. Let's not allow ourselves to believe that they are struggling. Adults are struggling, and yes, there is a struggle out there. And
And I'd also like to just comment on this because one of my favorite quotes, again I go back to values. I'd read this a long time back, was that it's easier to bring up stronger children than mend broken men. And that core there, I believe, again, like when you're talking to your kids and you're talking about values doesn't have to mean that you're going to sit down and I'm going to explain the Rig Veda to you right now. Values is very simple, basic. It could even mean that let me tell you about your grandfather, let me tell you about your great grandfather, what all the family has come through for you to, let us say, have this meal today. That degree of strength, that when it comes, will show when it is needed. It doesn't have to show every day. As a parent, I feel, don't underestimate the power of planting a thought.
Well, speaking of thoughts, we have non-stop questions coming. But I'm going to say that what Dr. Samir said to the student, we can't do it quickly enough. So I'm tempted to not just say that, but go a step ahead and say, we can't do all. You have to come back for our next webinar. So we are going to conclude at this time with Anita Sharma's last question: how to control the productivity content in high school students competing how to control the productivity content that high school students are competing in right now. I'm not quite.
We don't control the productivity content. We try to inculcate the zeal to do well in children, right? That desire that I want to do well, I want to improvise on my each performance, and that's my only benchmark. My today will be better than my yesterday. That's good enough. Rest will fall in its place. That positivity, goal directedness, that zeal, which is an intrinsic motivation, is what we need to help children find within themselves.
So you had Dr. Samir Parikh, who is a psychiatrist and has worked with so many children and so many people and made a difference to their lives, tell you some wonderful things. We've had Yogi, Yogi who has also, Yogi Suri, who has had 97 years of experience, even though he is not 97 years old, but the media group he represents is. I will give you my 2 pennies of gyan, and I'll say if you have to keep your children safe, there's one magical thing that you can do. It's called this and this and this. Hug them. Right now with social distancing, this is the hug that we do. There are different versions of the hugging system that is being propagated. At the study school, we start our morning session with, I need my morning hug. And we ask all the children to share that with us. The other big tool is that smile. And I always say a smile is such a funny thing. It wrinkles up your face. And when it's gone, you'll never find its secret hiding place. So find all the reasons to smile. Tell each other wealth that you can give to your children. So make sure that you have links of your family really tight as those hugs, because that's what's going to see you through the COVIDian times, through the post-COVIDian times, and it's all about relationships. So make sure those links are there. I'd like to thank our panelists for being on the Study School Stay Connected and Learn series. And I'd like to ask you to follow, of course, follow Dr. Samir Parikh on the Fortis sites, because he has amazing things to share. Yes, mental health site. And follow us on the Study School on Instagram and also on Facebook. And join us for our next web series where we're talking about bringing up children without prejudice. So in this global world, which has gone local, you have been brought up with thoughts that you don't even know you have. They're so ingrained in your DNA. How can you reprogram your DNA and have children that grew up without prejudice? We have Jamal Sheikh, who is the editor of Brunch and Hindustan Times New Media, and also an artist who's a Padma Shri and my mentor. So till next time, thank you, Yogi. Would you like to say some parting words?
So my only thing again for this topic of keeping children safe would be that build the vivek, the ability to discern, not just keep installing filters, create that ability to create filters further, that I would feel once you can do that, you've got it covered as a parent. And of course, Dr. Parikh has been very illuminating.
Samir, would you like to say goodbye with a few words?
Stay positive, stay connected, value relationships.
Absolutely. And don't judge too harsh. I think what Samir said to us as parents, let things lie and the children will find their path also. Show them the path with your self-example. And that, as Portia said in Merchant of Venice, she'd rather teach 20 than be one of her students who has to follow what she's taught herself. So let's do the tough thing. And remember, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So thank you for being with us.
True. Thank you. Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, Samir.
Thank you.